He holds the arrows of war in the other. He's made up of opposites. Peace and war. Think about that. So let's look at this. So here's what's going to happen. And get the idea behind Deuteronomy 28. And I mentioned this. God said if you keep all the laws, the 10, which has dominion over you, the contract of the law was in force over Israel. If you keep all those laws, then I'll bless you. Deuteronomy 28 specifically says, if you keep not all the statutes, then of course I'm going to have to kill you. I'm going to have to release something over you. And here's what he said. He said, the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee corn, wine, or oil, or increase of thy kine, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. Stop right here. The Capitol building, Washington, D.C., Capitol. The word cap is in capital. Why? Because kappa means the head, the top. What's at the top? We put a cap on our head. When you have a spending cap, that means you reach a limit. You can't go above that. The nation's capital, ruling over all the Americans, the federal jurisdiction. When they laid the Capitol building cornerstone, George Washington came out. There's this famous painting of it. And he's got his little apron on, and he is pouring corn, wine, and oil onto this stone as an offering and an oblation. Think about it. And he says here, this eagle nation is going to eat corn, wine, and oil. Well, this Bible's right, isn't it? It'll tell us all the secrets, won't it? But just kind of get that in your mind. So think of not just the United States. Not when you see like the eagle, that's maybe part of the United States. But it's not just. Remember, the Roman Empire used an eagle. Adolf Hitler used an eagle. So you had like two eagles going against each other in World War II. But you have a principality, an eagle principality, a spirit ruling through the hearts and the minds of those now in charge of our nation. And that is that emblem, that's what that shows you. So we find out what this eagle represents. Look in Lamentations 4:19. Our persecutors are swifter than eagles of the heaven. They pursued us upon the mountains. They laid wait for us in the wilderness. So eagles represent swiftness. They'll come down. Boom. So in Deuteronomy 28, when God said this nation comes from far as swift as the eagle flieth, just like that. When you are in the fourth dimension, you can go from here to there in a moment of time. Remember, the devil showed Jesus all the kingdoms of the earth when he was on an exceeding high mountain, which means it was above normal high mountains. And he showed him all the kingdoms of the earth in a moment of time. That's how swift it's going to happen. And if you're not ready, you will be destroyed. Lamentations again. Our persecutors are swifter than the eagles of the heaven. Notice that it mentions the persecutors and eagles. And the eagles of the heaven. Job 9:26. They are passed away as the swift ships, as the eagle that hasteth to the prey. Job 39:26. Doth the hawk fly by thy wisdom, and stretch her wings toward the south? Doth the eagle mount up at thy command, and maketh her nest on high? She dwelleth and abideth on the rock, upon the crag of the rock, and the strong place. From thence she seeketh the prey, and her eyes behold afar off. Her young ones also suck up the blood, and where the slain are, there is she. Get this now. So you have even Russia. The emblem of Russia, I believe, is a double-headed eagle, even though they also use a bear. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But think about what this verse is saying here. Eagles do not live down in holes. They don't. They're not ostriches, dumb ostriches that stick their head in the sand and hide from everybody to where they can see. The ostrich does that because if he thinks his head, if he can't see, then he can't be seen. The eagles are not like that. The eagles fly high. Very high. Why do they do that? Because God gave them eagle vision. God gave them the ability to see clearly, miles away. They can detect motion in the grass. I went out, he mentions hawks here, hawks and eagles related. I came out the back door of the church one time, and there on the grass there in front of where my van was, a hawk was just flying off with a snake in his talons. I scared it, and it flew off for just a half a second, and then came back down, got the snake, and flew off again. He's going, I don't like the man, but this is my lunch for the next week. How did that hawk, and this is what we say, I never used to see this as a child, but all over Missouri now, we see them everywhere. Hawks are everywhere. To me, they're amazing. There's one that lands on a fence around our sewage lagoon behind our house, and he'll just stand there. That hawk will just stand there. He won't move. He won't make a sound. You know what he's doing? He's looking. His eyes are detecting a blade of grass moving like that. His eye, and he has to be on a high spot. So we look around on these telephone poles, in tree branches. They're everywhere. They're up high, because they're looking down, watching, and waiting to come in. And when they see the prey, boom, they got it. I'm going to deal with this as when we deal more with the leopards. But think about it. We put satellites way up in the heavens, and they have wings on them, solar panels. And these satellites do one thing. They look down. They give man the eagle ability. Satellites that, and we've known this for years, satellites that can look down on your porch at a penny laying on your porch and tell you whether that penny's heads up or heads down. That's what they have the ability to do. Think about what's going on here, because that's what he's saying. She dwelleth upon the rock, upon the crag of the rock, and the strong place. And so what did Reagan want? He wanted this, what they called the SDI, the Strategic Defense Initiative, the Star Wars program. He wanted the ability to have satellites in the heavens that would detect a nuclear launch, because in an ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, when Russia was to send a rocket with a nuclear warhead over to America, it couldn't just fly the course of the ocean and run out of fuel. The goal was to fly it up into space and then right back down on its target. And so Reagan wanted a system, an Eagle system, whereby the Eagle would detect the ICBM being launched. When it reached the heavens, it could be destroyed before it ever came back down to the ground. Do we have weapons in space? We're dumb if we think we don't, and any country who has the technology is dumb if they don't use it. We have the technology, and I am 90% sure that we have weapons in space. Weapons with cameras, with eyes that can see and know. This is why our CIA knows everything that's going on. Jeremiah 49:16. Look at this aspect of an eagle. Thy terribleness hath deceived thee, and the pride of thine heart, O thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, that holdest the height of the hill, that thou shouldest make thy nest as high as the eagle. I will bring thee down from thence, saith the Lord. So one of the things we're looking at with the eagle is its loftiness. We use that word lofty to mean pride. Think of the devil. Pride was found in him. He was full of pride. He has wings. He flies around. Think of American pride. Think of nations that have pride, that think they cannot be brought down. And I'll say, I've mentioned, I love my country. But right now we are so full of ourselves in thinking that we can be the nation's and the world's police force, and that we can never be brought down. We are the strong America. We even have gone farther in space than anybody else has. Obadiah 1:4. Notice the number 4. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. Look at that. See what that eagle's doing? He has exalted himself to the heavens, and he's building a nest in the stars. That's what he's doing. Apollo 11 patch. Now, going back to Obadiah chapter 1, verse 4, and Jeremiah 49:16, when this eagle spirit exalts itself and builds its nest among the stars, and it's full of pride, God said, when you get there, I'm going to bring you down. So I want you to think of the idea of this eagle's wings being plucked from the lion. Look at Hosea chapter 8. Set the trumpet to thy mouth, he shall come as an eagle against the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant and trespassed against my law. There it is right there. The reason for this cruel authority is because they broke God's law. Habakkuk 1, verse 6, For lo, I raised up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgments and their dignity shall proceed of themselves. Their horses also are swifter than the leopards, and are more fierce than the evening wolves. And their horsemen shall come from far. They shall fly as the eagle that hasteth to eat. They shall come all for violence. Their faces shall sup up as the east wind, and they shall gather the captivity as the sand. Now, I think that when it says here in Habakkuk about the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, I think there are the earthly Chaldeans and the spiritual ones. I think, and I've made this illustration before, when God talked about 7 nations stronger and mightier than thou, he was referring to the Canaanites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, those 7 nations that already dwelt in the land of Canaan. We also, and I did this on the King James Code when I dealt with the number 7, because we see that there are 7 spiritual forces, 7 gods, represented by the 7 heads of the beast, the 7 heads of the dragon, 7 spiritual entities. So that leads me to believe that when God is referring to these 7 nations that his people are going to go against, remember, there is an earthly scenario and there is a heavenly one. And so I think, rather than it just being some guy from the Chaldeans, I think that it is the spiritual nation of the Chaldeans. And it says that they have eagles, they're like leopards, they're like wolves, they're like all of these things. I think this represents principalities. Now, Deuteronomy 4:17. The question is, why were the eagle's wings plucked off of the lion? What symbol does that represent? Well, we saw that when they exalt themselves as the eagle, build their nest among the stars, God said, I'm going to bring you down. Okay? Now look at Deuteronomy 4:17. The likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air. Deuteronomy 32:11. As an eagle stirreth up her nest, fluttereth over her young, spreadeth abroad her wings, taketh them, beareth them on her wings. Psalm 18:10. And he rode upon a cherub and did fly, yea, he did fly upon the wings of the wind. Notice that the wings of the wind are associated with a cherub. Psalm 55, verse 6. And I said, Oh, that I had wings like a dove, for then would I fly away